Hey everybody, I hope that you're well and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 4 English lesson on antonyms. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts, grade 4. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to our chapter of antonyms. All right. So our chapter is antonyms. Our subject is English Language Arts, grade 4. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of antonyms is to choose the antonym and also which sentence uses an antonym. That is going to be our lessons for today under our chapter of antonyms. All right. So this chapter, right, we'll be doing antonyms. And in our previous lesson, we did synonyms, right? And we said synonyms are words that basically have it's different words, but it has the same meaning or almost the same meaning, right? So that is synonyms. And we said that um, synonyms are words like dad, father, mom, mother, um, but it's basically words that is almost the same, right? Or it has the same meaning or almost the same meaning. Now we are going to antonyms again. This time around, we're going to antonyms, and we see that antonyms are words with opposite meanings. So we will have our different words, but the words will have opposite meaning. For example, right? Words with opposite meanings, right? It is big and we have little, right? So which means that something that is big, right, is the opposite of something that's little, right? Because if I were to, for example, make an example of something, just think of a box, right? Then this can be like a big box, right? That is big. Even the words are big. And then we have this one over here. And this one is little or small, right? So can you see these two are basically opposites because one is big and one is small. right? Another one can, if we look at the few examples, right? If we're going to look at examples of antonyms or more words that are antonyms, and we said antonyms are words with opposite meaning, then think of, like, for example, I'm going to write down the word and you will tell me what is the antonym of that word, the opposite of that word. Clean. So you need to tell me what is the opposite of clean. Black. Happy. Um, so things along of words that are opposite in meaning. The opposite of clean. What is the opposite of black? What is the opposite of happy? If you look at more words, then we can say, what is the opposite of fat? The opposite of last. Um, it's either I go forward or I go the opposite of heavy. Husband, brother, the opposite of mother. So you need to think of the opposites of these words. Inside, cry, quiet, and then one more, long. All right. So we are now going to look at the opposites of those words. All right, and some of you already wrote down a few opposites, right, of these words. All right, so let's start with yes. So the opposite of clean is dirty. Well done. Right, so if something is not clean, it is dirty. If something is not dirty, it is clean. If something is not dirty, it's clean. Yes, if I'm not happy, then I'm sad, right? What is the opposite of black? The opposite of black. The opposite of fat. Yes, the opposite of forward is backward. Well done. The opposite of last is first. I specifically put last instead of first because most people know that the opposite of first is last, but or let's say few people or let's say most people know the opposite of first is last, but some people they don't know that the opposite of last is first. So well done. Yes, we have something is heavy or something is very light. Well done. Yes, we have husband and we have wife. Opposite of husband is wife. The opposite of brother is sister. Mother is father. The opposite of inside is outside. Yes, well done, guys. The opposite of quiet is loud. Say, if I'm not quiet, I'm loud. If I'm not loud, I'm very quiet. The opposite of cry is laugh, right? Even though some people have tears of joy. The opposite of long is short. We can either say the opposite of fat is slim, or another word for the opposite of fat. Another word for slim. Another word for slim. So think of another word for slim. So far we have the opposite of clean is dirty, and then we see the opposite of happy is sad. The opposite of fat is either slim, or another word for slim is what? Yeah, so the opposite of slim is thin. Well done. The opposite of black. If it's not black, it is what? If it is not black, it is what? And remember, when we talk about this, right, then we don't talk about skin color. We're talking about things, colors. The opposite of black is what? All right, so we can say the opposite of black is white, right? Because usually people would associate, even when it comes to, and the reason why we say opposite of black is white, or the opposite of white is black, is because sometimes people would even associate, let's say, black with darkness, and they would associate white with the light. Some people would associate black with you are, let's say, it's like you're naughty, blah, 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 or whiteness with peace, right? So that is why it has its opposite connotations to one another, right? But these are a few of our antonyms. So well done, guys. These are examples of antonyms. And we said antonyms are words with the opposite meaning, right? It's either something is big or something is little. It's either something is spotless clean or something is extremely dirty. It's either something is black or it is white. It's either you are happy, like genuinely happy, or you are extremely sad. It's either you are fat or you are slim. And remember, a lot of people have a negative connotation to like fat, right? You get a lot of people that are fat or big boned, but they are extremely healthy. They are fit, right? Even fitter or healthier than some people that are slimmer or thinner. Then we also have last, right? It's either um, you come last or you come first, or you either come first or you come last. It's either we are going forwards or we are going backwards, right? Or it's like saying it's either we are in front or we're at the back. Like just think of if you are standing in the line, right? So if you're standing in the line and you standing in the line with different other students, right? And then someone stands in front, someone stands at the back, someone stands behind, someone stands in front, right? So that means it's the opposites of one another. Something can either be extremely heavy or it can be as light as a feather. The opposites now, when it comes to people, right, is the opposites are husband and wife. So the husband is a male, wife is a female. Then we have brother, And sister, sister is also a female, and brother is a male or boy. And in the same with mother and father, grandmother, grandfather. It's either you're inside or you're outside. Sometimes we are crying, right? Because just think of if there's maybe, for example, a loss in the family. Are we going to laugh at the fact that somebody had passed on? No, right? We are going to cry because we are sad. Or if you, for example, go and watch a comedy show, and then it means that you're going to laugh because it's funny, right? So you need to know when to also use, for example, those specific moods, right? Or emotions. So it's either someone is very quiet or they are extremely loud, right? And then we have long and we have short. So these are examples of antonyms, and we say antonyms are words with opposite, or it's words with it's basically words with opposite meaning, right? And then we made also examples of all our antonyms. So well done. All right, so now let's go to aplusstudents.ca. No, we're only going to do the two lessons on antonyms. So we're only doing two lessons on antonyms. And then in our next lesson, we will basically do a follow up lesson again on antonyms, which will be the last one. So today we're only doing to choose the antonym. Let's quickly go to aplusstudents.ca and I will show you. So it's either, so today we're going to only choose the antonym and we're going to say which sentence uses the antonym. And then in our next lesson, we will find antonyms in context. All right. So now we're going to choose the antonym. All right. So we are going to choose the specific antonym, right? And it's basically given to us already. So it's already given to us, right? So here they say, which word is an antonym of smile? Right? So the word that's the antonym of smile. So it's either you are smiling, right? Or we can say that you frown. It's either I'm smiling at, or it's like frowning at someone, you know? If we look at the word better, it's either something is getting better or it gets worse, right? It either gets better or it gets worse. And here we can either say you are thin or you are thick, right? Or thin or a bit fat or slim and thick, right? Those are words that are opposite in meaning. All right, so now let's go to our test where we are going to choose the antonym. All right, we need to say which word is an antonym of unusual. Unusual, the opposite of unusual. If something is not unusual, Does it mean it is common or it is lazy? The opposite of unusual. Is it common or is it lazy? Unusual. All right. And if we were to choose the opposite of unusual, right? Or the antonym of unusual, then yes, we would say it is common. Is if something is not unusual, then it is common, right? So well done. The opposite of unusual is common. All right. What is the opposite or the antonym of ugly? The opposite of antonym of ugly. Is it pretty or is it strange? The opposite of ugly. The opposite of ugly. If something or someone is not ugly, are they pretty or strange? All right, and if we were to choose the correct option, right? The opposite, the antonym of ugly, right? And we will say the opposite of ugly is pretty. Because if something is not ugly, they are pretty. If something is not pretty, they are ugly. So well done. All right, the next one. What is the opposite or the antonym of poor? Is it unlucky or is it rich? So if you are not poor, are you unlucky or are you rich? All right, so the opposite of poor, right? The opposite of poor is rich. Because if you are not poor, you are rich. Or if you're not rich, you are poor. All right, so yes. What is the opposite or the antonym of tell? Tell. It's either I want to tell you something, or if I don't tell you something, do I ask you something? Or is it about? Tell or about. So tell, is it the opposite of ask or is it about? What is the opposite of tell? All right. So yes, the opposite of tell is to ask. Because it's either I'm asking you something or I'm telling you something. So well done. All right. What is the opposite of weak? If I am not weak, and then I'm what? Am I strong or I'm small? If I'm not weak, am I strong or am I small? The opposite of weak. So the opposite of weak, the antonym of weak, is it strong or is it small? All right. So the opposite of weak, right? Which means that if I am not weak, and then I am strong. So well done. So the opposite of weak is strong. Let's do the one and then we're going on to the next lesson. It says, which word is the antonym of tiny? Is it huge or is it baby? The opposite of tiny. Is it huge or baby? So the opposite of tiny. Is it huge or baby? All right. So the opposite of tiny, right? Which means that if something or someone is not tiny, and then we can say that thing or person is huge. They say the thing is huge. So well done. All right, so now we're going on to the next lesson, right? Which is to, it says, which sentence uses an antonym? We don't need to say which sentence uses an antonym. And remember, we said antonyms are words with opposite meaning. Here it says, if we look at the sentence, it says, did Dalton find his favorite jacket? So did Dalton find his favorite jacket? What is the opposite of find? If you don't find something and then you what something, the opposite of find. If you don't find something and then the opposite of find, to find something. All right, so if we were to find the opposite of find, right? So if you don't find something and then you lose something. So did Dalton find his jacket? Or we can say, did Dalton lose his jacket? Because lose is the opposite or the antonym of find. All right, look at this one. It says, Mr. Ramsey likes to exercise downstairs. So Mr. Ramsey likes to exercise downstairs. What is the opposite of downstairs? If something is not downstairs and then it's where? So we need to say the opposite of downstairs. If I am not downstairs, yes, and then I am upstairs. So if we don't exercise downstairs, we exercise upstairs. Well done. Or if it's not down, then it's up, or if it's not up, it is down. So well done. All right, here it is. Rona hopes to receive many cards on Valentine's Day this year. So Rona hopes to receive. What is the opposite of receive? If you don't receive something and then you are the opposite of receive. What is the opposite of receive? Yes, well done. So the opposite of receive is to send something. So it's either I receive something or I send something, right? So the opposite of receiving something is sending something. So send. So well done. All right. So now we're going to A plus student. No, we're going to the test. Sorry. So we're going now to our test where we are going to say which sentence uses an antonym. All right. right, so let's look at that sentence. It says you need to read the sentence and select the sentence that uses an antonym in place of a word in bold. So it says Rona hopes to receive many cards on Valentine's Day this year. So Rona hopes to receive many cards on Valentine's Day this year. What is the opposite of receive? Is it Rona hopes to make many cards on Valentine's Day this year? Or she hopes to send a lot of cards or many cards on Valentine's Day this year? The opposite of receive, is it option one to make or option two to send? All right. And then if we were to choose our correct sentence, right, which uses an antonym, then we would say it's option two. Rona hopes to send many cards on Valentine's Day. So well done. Option two is correct. All right. It says the cupboards in Mrs. Brady's kitchen are quite messy inside. So the word messy, the opposite of messy, is it the cupboards in Mrs. Brady's kitchen are quite damp inside or quite neat inside? Damp option one or neat option two? Yes, sense is correct. Well done. Messy, the opposite of messy. Is it damp or is it neat? Messy. All right, and if we were to choose the correct option, and then we will say the cupboards in Mrs. Brady's kitchen are quite neat. Because if something is not messy, it is neat. If something is not neat, it is messy. So well done. The next one says the sheriff had a smile on his face as he rode away on his horse. Smile. What is the opposite of smile? Either the sheriff had a frown on his face as he rode away on his horse, or the sheriff had a mask on his face as he rode away. So the opposite of smile, is it frown or is it mask? All right, and the opposite of smile. So if somebody's not smiling, then they are frowning, right? So frown is correct. So well done. Yes, so if you don't smile, you frown. All right. Mr. Ramsey likes to exercise downstairs. We need to say what is the opposite of downstairs. Is it often or is it upstairs? The opposite of downstairs, is it often or is it upstairs? If it is not downstairs, and then it's often, or if it's not downstairs, it is upstairs. All right, then the opposite of downstairs is upstairs. If it's not downstairs, then it's upstairs. Well done. Yes. Do you hate pumpkin pie like I do? The opposite of hate. The opposite of hate is the opposite of hate. Do you love pumpkin pie like I do? Or do you sell pumpkin pie like I do? We need to find the opposite of hate. Is it love or is it sell? Love or sell? The opposite. All right. So the opposite of hate, right? Opposite of hate. If I don't hate you, then I love you. If I don't love you, I hate you, which we shouldn't do, right? We should all be lovers, not haters. All right, let's look at the last one. The Harveys have a tiny tree in their yard. The opposite of tiny. Is it the Harveys have an apple tree in their yard? Or option two, the Harveys have a huge tree in the yard. The opposite of tiny. If something is not tiny, it is apple, or if something is not tiny, it is huge. All right, so if we are going to choose the opposite of tiny, right? So if something is not tiny, and then it is huge. So well done. Huge is correct. All right, so this is now the end of our lessons, grade 4, on antonyms. We said antonyms are words with opposite meaning, right? So if something is not black, it is white. For example, the opposite, right? If something is not clean, it is dirty. So that is antonyms. Antonyms are words that are opposite in meanings. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on antonyms. Thank you very much, grade 4s, for joining the class. Next, in on our next lesson or our next session, we are going to continue with antonyms, and we are going to find antonyms in context. But for now, you must have a good evening further. Goodbye.